tuturor, bun găsit! Sunt Mircea Boian și vă salut din studiourile AgroTV în cadrul proiectului AgriSmart. Locul unde venim cu lucruri importante, frumoase și bune, asta pentru ca să schimbăm, să fim altfel și să aducem până la urmă sectorul agroindustrial la un alt nivel. Ediția de astăzi nu este o excepție, mai ales că avem un invitat special, și anume domnul Raimond Iele. Bine ați venit! Reprezentantul Organizației Națiunilor Unite pentru Alimentație și Agricultură, adică FAO, în Republica Moldova. Bine ați venit!
Mulțumesc! Thank you very much for having me here. It's a great pleasure to be on the program, and I'm looking forward to have with you an interesting conversation about agriculture in Moldova, and I hope it will be an interesting discussion.
Înainte de a trece la subiectele emisiunii de astăzi, vreau să vă întreb cum vă simțiți în Republica Moldova, cum vi se pare Republica Moldova în ansamblu, dar și moldovenii până la urmă.
I'm coming to Moldova since already 2008. I'm not residing here, so I'm coming and going in my capacity as a representative. I have taken up the assignment in 2016, but the longer and the more often I'm coming to Moldova, the more I understand the country, the more I understand also the agriculture. I like wine. Which of course is something which you very much appreciate when you come to Moldova. I like good food. I have been living before in Italy, and Moldova in this case is also a very interesting country with a rich cuisine, with a variety of cuisine, which in principle is a very good basis for agriculture, because food and wine are key elements in order to make successful agriculture.
Este foarte frumos spus, food and wine. Vinul bun, bucatele, adică bucătăria noastră, pot fi o carte de vizită care să reprezinte cu brio Republica Moldova, în opinia noastră, care cunoașteți Republica Moldova de mai de mult și veniți, din câte am înțeles, cu drag și nouă dată și veți mai veni.
Well, of course, wine is not only, let's say, something to enjoy, but it's also culture. And it's in principle a good, let's say, visit card. It's a good showcase in order to bring the culture of Moldova in other countries. We know when we're looking at wine, for example, from Italy, it translates, it transmits a certain kind of lifestyle. It does it also with the wine of France, and in the same way, I think wine will be an important export of the culture of life of Moldova.
Aș vrea să vă întreb acum de unde vine pasiunea pentru agricultură și implicarea în agricultură. Și mai ales între așa o chestie destul de complicată și care își asumă foarte mult asupra ei, adică FAO, și care vine în ajutorul agriculturii. Dumneavoastră aveți tradiții în agricultură, începând de la părinți, activați în agricultură. Haideți să vedem de unde a pornit-o.
My life is in fact dominated by agriculture. I grew up on a farm. I have been working as a farmer. I have been working for the European Commission in agriculture, and I'm working since more than 24 years for the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Food is one of the most important elements of life, and supporting food security, supporting that people have safe food, that people have enough food, I think is a very important element, and it's been driving my passion for agriculture over time.
Dacă vorbim, și ați spus în contextul dat, despre securitatea alimentară, mulți vorbesc necunoscând lucrul ăsta. Haideți să vedem pe cât este de important de a pune accentul pe securitatea alimentară, ținând cont inclusiv, încă o dată întrebare. Dacă ați vorbit de securitatea alimentară, haideți să vedem pe cât de important este acest subiect la ora actuală, vorbește toată lumea, avem un război alături de țara noastră, avem linii logistice care sunt cu tot și cu totul date peste cap după tot ce însemna tradițional, pe cât este de precară securitatea alimentară la nivel global.
Well, food security, of course, is important. We have the Agenda 2030, which in fact commits all of the countries of the world to have zero hunger by 2030. We have still more than 700 million hungry people in the world. We have, for example, with the war in Ukraine, we have more than 8 million people who were also refugees or internally displaced. And therefore, of course, food security is an important issue which we need to address further, and we need to find solutions for this.
În opinia dumneavoastră, Republica Moldova, care se numește o țară agroindustrială și care încearcă să facă față provocărilor, cum am spus noi, și cu toate problemele care sunt în regiune, cum poate contribui ea și ce rol are atunci când vorbim de securitatea alimentară la nivel mondial sau măcar regional până la urmă?
Well, food security is a complex issue. Food security has, in fact, the dimension of, first of all, production availability. Food security is connected to the accessibility of the population, and food security, but also means what we eat. We have in the European and Central Asia region, we have a very low level of hungry people, undernutrition, in fact. But we have a big problem with obesity and overweight. And so a contribution which one can make as a country is, of course, in this case also to increase healthy diets, to increase, in this case also, the production of safe food. And, of course, with the increase of export of products from Moldova, there is also a possibility to contribute to the global food security.
Agricultura în Republica Moldova niciodată n-a fost un sector deloc simplu. Mai ales în ultimii ani ne confruntăm cu mari probleme, ba chiar și revolte pe locuri din partea celor care sunt în acest sector, adică fermierii, cu ce am putea, la ora actuală, ținând cont de provocările care sunt în Ucraina, proteste și multe alte lucruri, cum putem veni, în opinia dumneavoastră, în ajutorul fermierilor, mai ales celor mici și mijlocii, ca acești jucători, până la urmă, să nu dispară, dar să se dezvolte sau măcar să se mențină.
Well, I think what is important when we're looking at agriculture, we have to take a value chain approach. We have to take a holistic approach, which means we have to take into consideration the importance of farming not just as an economic activity. We have to look at it as a social as well as also an environmental dimension. So which means farming is important to look at it from a food systems approach. Now, the challenge which the agriculture sector in Moldova, of course, faces is that, of course, we need to improve production knowledge. There needs to be more knowledge put into the production. But at the same time, there is also need to provide access to finance because the sector requires investment into new technology. With climate change, we have, of course, enormous challenges for agriculture production, and that requires knowledge. It requires, of course, also finance. But it requires also an institutional framework, institutional security for the farmers and for the investment, which is in this case very helpful for making the sector and making farming more competitive, and which allows then to exploit also the natural potential which Moldova in terms of agriculture has.
Haideți acum să mergem la concret. De cât timp FAO face lucruri frumoase în Republica Moldova, ce a reușit la concret să facă și unde a înregistrat cele mai frumoase succese până la urmă. Că asta e important. Toți încercăm să dăm din coate, dar vrem să vedem lucrurile frumoase.
FAO is in fact active since the beginning of 2000 in Moldova. Actually, Moldova is a member of FAO since 1995. And we have representation since 2015 in Moldova. And in this case, there is a long list of projects which we have done over time. And as you can imagine from the mandate of FAO, we are working in a wide range of. But let me, in principle, say there are a couple of very important ones. We did some years ago a project which was financed by Hungary, which was looking into supporting small-scale irrigation. And in this case, we were supporting small-scale farmers in the case of chestnut production, in the case of walnut production, not chestnut, walnut production, where we increased and improved the irrigation technology using modern drip irrigation in order to strengthen their production capacity. We have been in the drought at the end of the 2000 years, also been very successfully supported the farmers in Moldova. We are these days supporting the farmers with also concrete emergency response, but we are also have worked in the area of research and technology, analyzing the situation. We have worked also on improving the possibility to promote export of agricultural products in terms of strategies. So we have a very wide range of activities which we have done over the years in Moldova, and I think we are a strong contributor to the improvement of the agricultural production and the agricultural sector and the food systems transformation in Moldova.
Din cele spuse de dumneavoastră, aș vrea să vă întreb și care, în opinia, analizele care au fost făcute, au fost principalele provocări pentru sectorul agroalimentar din Republica Moldova de la începutul războiului din Ucraina.
The Ukraine war has in fact affected the agriculture sector with the interruption of supply chains and with, in principle, also making export markets more difficult, which resulted also in a very strong increase of prices for inputs, fertilizer, fuel, as well, of course, also for finance. And the prices in that sense for the farmers became 3 to 5 times higher than they were also in 2021, which of course increased in this case then the production cost, but at the same time made it difficult for some of the smallholder farmers to afford the utilization of these inputs. And that, of course, may have implications because 65% of the production in Moldova is being produced by the smallholders.
În 2022, FAO a făcut o analiză, a făcut un studiu asupra impactului schimbărilor climatice și anume inclusiv asupra secetei peste tot ce înseamnă sectorul agroindustrial. Vreau să vă întreb care sunt concluziile, ce trebuie să schimbăm începând de la nivelul de gândire a simplului fermier și ce ar fi de făcut și cu ce vine FAO concret la acest subiect.
We have seen from the crop and food supply assessment which we have done in 2022 that indeed the drought was one of the strongest effects on the agriculture sector. We have seen that, for example, in the case of sunflower, almost 60% has been lost in terms of the harvest. We have seen 50% in the case of corn, and we have seen around the same amount also for wheat. So the implications in this case were quite significant, and a key recommendation, of course, taking into consideration that this is connected to the climate change, is that, of course, first of all, farmers need to have access also to financial resources in order to compensate such kind of losses. But secondly, and this is connected to I think a shift in the understanding how to do farming, we need to introduce also climate smart agriculture. Climate smart agriculture means also technology which is adapted to climate change. That means drought-resistant seeds varieties. It means also low tillage technology in order to keep the moisture, in this case, in the soil. And that would require a change of the habit how the production is going to be done. But the third recommendation, which was done also by the report, is that we need to have an adequate institutional framework which facilitates this sustainable agriculture production under this climate stress and the climate change.
Păi iată, în acest context, FAO, ce măsuri poate lua la concret de sprijin, dacă vorbim, pentru că situația este una destul de precară, pentru a atenua efectele negative ale acestei crize și pentru a construi reziliența asta a sistemului alimentar. Pentru că toți vorbim, batem clopotele, dar puțini sunt care fac treabă și mulți sunt care vorbesc.
Put up an emergency response program in order to follow the recommendations which also I mentioned before. And in this case we had three concrete actions. The first one is the support to smallholder farmers with inputs, because without adequate seed, without adequate fertilizer, it would have been not possible to secure the planting season in this case. The second concrete measure in this case was, of course, continuing the training and the capacity building for farmers for climate smart agriculture, for adjusting the production technology. And the third one, of course, also is to provide the relevant institutions and supporting the Ministry of Agriculture also in its capacity development, as well as also in the building of the institutional framework for responding also to the crisis.
Să vorbim acum la concret și despre lucrurile importante, nu doar vorbi, nu ne plac și faptele. Iar dumneavoastră veniți acum din teritoriu, cum spunem noi, adică din raioane, și anume din raionul Cantemir și Leova, unde v-ați întâlnit cu fermieri, cu familii de fermieri și care au primit din partea FAO, în urma implicării FAO, au primit ce? Fertilizanți, furaje, semințe. Adică, acești oameni au beneficiat de susținere și aș vrea să vă întreb acum. Deci, ca să fie mai clar, ăștia sunt producătorii care au vaci mari cornute pe lângă casă. Haideți să vedem care este anume suportul și valoarea lui și care este situația, pentru că ați discutat la direct cu ei.
Thanks for this concrete question, because of course, we like to be also concrete, and what I've seen also today, particularly also in Cantemir, is that we have been successful supporting the distribution of seeds, fertilizer, as well as also animal feed, and we have been so far with the amounts which we have available under the rapid response program. We have been able in the southern districts, more than 120 villages and locations with almost 700 tons of support in this area. And when I was speaking today with also two of the beneficiaries, one has received more drought-resistant corn seeds. He was very happy and very excited with the 1.3 hectares which he has planted in this context with this contribution. And I have seen also another beneficiaries where she was able, and the female beneficiary, female farmer, where she was able to receive 350 kilos of animal feed for her cows in order to make sure that they are producing between 15 to 20 liters of milk daily.
Este un suport destul de important, până la urmă. 2830 de familii care au până la 4 vaci în 120 de localități, din raioanele Căușeni, Basarabească, Cahul, Cantemir, Leova, care au primit între 350 și 375 de kilograme. Vreau să vă spun un lucru, în primul rând, din partea lor, că trebuie să o spunem, mare mulțumesc, dar și trebuie să spunem de unde sunt fondurile și cui trebuie să spunem un grand mersi, pentru că putem ajuta fermierii care încearcă de la mici să crească în sus și să nu dispară.
Was referring to the rapid response program. We have in fact had the intention that we would need around 50 million US dollars in order to support 30,000 farmers. So we still need quite a lot of more of these funds, and so far we have 3 million available. The money was in principle provided by the Austrian Development Agency, by Japan, and also by Switzerland. So the farmers in this case need to certainly thank these generous donors also for this support. But of course, I would also like to stress that without intensive collaboration, also with the local communities, with the municipalities, with also the farmer organization, such a kind of distribution would not be possible.
În acest context și evaluând starea lucrurilor, aș vrea să vă întreb care este deschiderea până la urmă a instituțiilor de resort, agențiilor. Dumneavoastră veniți cu aport, cu susținere, cu bani până la urmă, cu deschidere și vreau să știu pe cât și instituțiile sunt de deschise și cum merg în întâmpinare.
FAO is an organization which cannot do things on its own, very clear, and the collaboration with the different institutions in Moldova is important. Of course, by mandate, the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Industry is a key one. I think we have an excellent collaboration. We have a very close interaction with the minister and with the staff of the ministry in the different areas. I mean, the response program, which I have mentioned, is something which has been very closely coordinated and has been very closely also supported from the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Industry. We are, of course, also collaborating in the area of food safety issues with the Food Safety Agency, which is important. We are, of course, also collaborating in the area of forestry, also with Mod Silva. So these are key institutions. Then, of course, agriculture and the climate change adaptation which is requires the close collaboration with the Ministry of Environment. We have very good collaboration with concrete programs in order to support land degradation neutrality. We are working with the ministry and also with the climate secretariat of the ministry in the area of developing an adaptation strategy for the agriculture sector. And we are, of course, also interested to bring further investments from the vertical fund, so green climate fund to Moldova, as well as also the global environment fund facility in order to support the agriculture sector. So we have a wide range of collaboration with different important government or institutions which are connected to the government, but we are also working in the area of research. We are working also with institutions which support also the capacity development of the agriculture sector.
Este de admirat ceea ce ați vorbit dumneavoastră și ne-ați explicat. Este un lucru chiar care trebuie să fie menționat. De câte ori avem ocazia și noi asta o facem, inclusiv noi, AgroTV-ul și prin prisma emisiunii noastre, proiectul nostru AgriSmart, Noi știm să-i dăm cezarului ce al cezarului și oamenilor care susțin agricultorii și agricultura din Republica Moldova, noi le suntem recunoscători și întotdeauna suntem deschiși. Dar acum aș vrea să vă întreb, ce le urați agricultorilor din Republica Moldova sau ce le promiteți până la urmă?
We are an organization which provides technical assistance. Of course, we cannot make promises, but what I can promise is in fact that we are always supporting smallholders, because the food security situation globally is not going to be solved if the smallholders are not going to increase competitiveness. And so FAO as an organization is always with the smallholders. FAO is always with the vulnerable people. This is two concrete things which I think is very important. The other issue what I think is also important, agriculture, and I go back to where we started at the beginning, agriculture is one of the most interesting areas in the world because it feeds us. And so we should never lose our optimism. We should lose not our optimism that agriculture has a good future and has a promising future. Also for Moldova is providing opportunities, is providing jobs, and is providing, in this case, safe and sustainable produced food. Two very concrete messages to the institutions. The first one is support a holistic approach. I was talking at the beginning, support agriculture from an economic, from a social, and from an environmental perspective. And the second clear message is invest in agriculture. Investment in agriculture is the future.
Pe această cale, eu vă mulțumesc foarte mult. Un om extraordinar, cu zâmbet, cu culoare și care a venit și aduce plus valoare inclusiv sectorului agroindustrial din Republica Moldova și a găsit timp să fie la noi în emisiune aici la AgriSmart și anume domnul Raimund Iele, reprezentantul Organizației Națiunilor Unite pentru Alimentație și Agricultură, adică FAO în Republica Moldova. Vă mulțumesc foarte mult și cu siguranță ne mai vedem.
Mulțumesc. It was my pleasure to be with you, and I'm looking forward to further support the agriculture sector and hope to see you very soon. La revedere.
Până la noi întâlniri. Doamne și domnilor, atât pentru ediția din această săptămână. Mircea Boian vă dau o întâlnire vinerea viitoare, iar până atunci, toate bune. Rămâneți cu Agro TV.